Hey guys, my name is Moon and welcome to the channel. So today we're going to be starting the next chapter in the Higurashi When They Cry series. Chapter 4, Himatsubushi. Very long title yet again. And this is going to be the final, I guess, question arc chapter, right? The fourth and final one. And I think it's going to be focused on Rika because we got chapter 1 was for Rena, right? Chapter 2 was for Mion. Chapter 3 was Satoko. So for sure, it's going to be chapter 4 for Rika. So can't wait to see what more mysteries again it's going to add to our story. More questions. And yes, before we start, I just want to say, if you checked out the first 3 chapters that we did, thank you very much. And I really appreciate it. So yes, let us start it. Himatsubushi. For you, the final mystery, time-killing chapter. I now entrust you with all the mysteries hidden within Higurashi When They Cry. However comical it may be, if you have reached any conjecture, then you have passed. The final novel is a meager reward for you. Conjecture is impossible. You have the right to reject the story. Okay, it is impossible, so let's see. Start. Okay, what is this? This arc includes choices that were added in the console version. These choices result in dialogue changes and can lead to bad ends. Let's just skip it, I suppose, right? I'm gonna choose the normal ending anyways, the good ending. Yeah, let's just skip it. Let's just do the normal one, I suppose. Yeah, just show only content from PC version. This is the OG version, the PC version, right? So yeah. Let's just do that. So we see all what's in this game, I mean. Who is the criminal, you ask? Don't we search for them in the story? Who is the criminal, you ask? Do you even know what the criminal did? Who's the criminal? Who is the criminal who will kill me now? Frederica Berncastle, yet again. Her name always shows up. Midsummer, 1985 now. It was always 1983, right? Okay, we're starting different. Okay, I had misread the time and ended up arriving too early. The schedule board flipped with a series of clacks. My flight to Sapporo was still a bit later on. Who's this? I still had over an hour before boarding. Well, I might as well close my eyes for a bit on the bench over there then. I came here directly from work, so maybe the fatigue from that was making me sleepy. Finding a suitable bench, I put my luggage on the seat next to me and settled down. Akasaka? So this is our character now, Akasaka? I sighed like an old man. I had hoped to stay young forever, but had become splendidly middle-aged. Apparently the rumor that even people in the latter half of their 20s experience a decline in their physical strength wasn't a lie. It had been mind-numbingly busy at work lately, so I rarely had any time to myself. This might have been the first time I'd been able to enjoy a journey alone like this since I was a student. The reason behind this trip was to meet with an old friend. It was a bit strange to call him an old friend. In fact, it might be better to call him a bad one. After retiring a couple of years ago, he moved to Sapporo, his mother's hometown. His mom passed away soon after and he is now peacefully enjoying his second lease on life. His name is Kurado Uishi. Okay, Uishi's friend. He was a former detective from the primary investigation unit at the station in Okonomiya or Okinomiya Prefecture. To be honest, the only direct contact we ever had didn't last more than 3 days. After that, we exchanged New Year's cards but never met again. So, this will be the first time meeting him in 7 years. In other words, we met 7 years ago, in 1978. 1978, I guess before everything started? There was something I just had to ask to talk to him about concerning that time. To explain that, it was impossible not to recall the incident that happened back then. The kidnapping, the details and the resolution of which were resigned to darkness. Also, it was impossible not to recall a certain mysterious girl. My name is Mamoru Akasaka. It was a year that had been strangely hot even though it was only June. So we're going and you're gonna see the flashback as well. Okay, early summer 1978.
先生、さようなら。
はい、さようなら。車に気をつけるんですよ。お友達の家に寄り道なんかしないように。明日の教科書の準備は必ず寝る前にしておくんですよ。
Clatter, clatter, clatter. The lively sounds of children are running towards a hallway.
でさ、つってんだぜ。
Okay, we're back with the OG music.
そんなの俺持ってるわよ。いらねえよ。
The unique, high-pitched voice of youth. The energetic shrill of the cicadas went completely unheard by their ears. Children returning home from school split off one by one from their groups of friends as they went through intersections in the residential area. Even though there were several of them in a group as they left the school, as they got closer to their homes, their numbers dwindled. That's why newer or fewer friends you were walking home with acted as an indicator that you were much closer to your destination.
じゃあな。あばよ。また明日ね。
He finally parted ways with his last friend. A van was parked at a bend in the road. The window was open and the sound of the radio leaking inside. It must have been on the news or something. What?
たため、道路交通法違反、公務執行妨害で3名を逮捕しました。一連のひなみ沢ダム建設反対をめぐる運動は、先月の機動隊との流血事件を境に過激化の一途をたどっており、警察では過激な活動家による次の事件を警戒しています。先週も建設省庁舎前での犬飼建設大臣への直訴事件があったばかりで。
The boy's ears perked up at the mention of name Inukai. At the moment, a man's face peeked out suddenly from the window of the van. His behavior was a little different than of a man looking around to see if there was any incoming traffic before he opened the door of his vehicle. His eyes meeting suddenly with the unfamiliar man, the boy panicked slightly.
ウグイス OK。
Nightingale.
ひばり OK。前後2ブロック確保した。いいぞ。
The man in the passenger seat whispered quietly. Nodding in acknowledgement, the man opened the door and stood before the boy.
君、犬飼俊樹君？
While asking that, the man peered at the boy's name tag. Toshiki Inukai. The name is written plainly there. It's so different, this start, I mean, right? The phone rang for a third time. If he reached out, he could easily pick up the receiver. However, he was concerned that if he picked it up before it had even finished ringing once, whoever was on the other end of the line would think him a fairly cheap person. That is why he normally never picked up the phone until the third ring. Even he thought it was a worthless habit. However, his thinking that there isn't much meaning in waiting for just 3 rings, wouldn't waiting for 5 be alright, was very much a reality. His mind filled with such trifling thoughts, he picked up the phone after the third ring had finished, its reverb dampened by his action.
はい。もしもし。もしもし。
He knew that sometimes, due to a malfunction in the switchboard, calls didn't connect well. At those times, it was best to hang up and let the person on the other end call again. thinking that the moment that he began to hang up the phone, he sensed that he was definitely connected after all. He felt the presence of the person on the other end of the line keeping silent.
もしもし
There was no way they didn't hear his question. What was the meaning of this? It wasn't like he didn't know that people could use silent calls to harass others. However, he'd never received a call like that until today. Maybe he was just lucky before, but he didn't believe that he would receive such a call on this phone. There were no direct calls to or from this line. Everything had to go through an operator. Therefore, there was absolutely no way the call would be connected unless it was verified there was somebody else on the other line. That's why he didn't understand how to deal with the silent call and instead settled into confusion.
あんた、誰だか知らないが、用がないなら切るよ。また、かけ直してください。
Intending that to be a parting line, he made a slam down the receiver. It was at that moment the person on the other end spoke for the first time.
あなたが名乗ってくれないから困ってんですよ。
Hey, what the hell is this? Death Note? Remember in Death Note when they had L's voice? It's kind of like this.
あんたが犬飼大臣じゃないなら、さっさと電話を切ってください。
He couldn't help but be surprised by the extremely strange voice on the other end of the line. Was there a human alive who could speak with this hoarse and metallic voice? No, this was a voice he heard somewhere before. That was the voice of that was on the lowbrow documentaries that they used when they wanted to hide the identity of a speaker, wasn't it? The voice he was hearing over the line was exactly like that.
あんた、誰？
だから、それはこっちが聞いてるんですよ。あんた、犬飼大臣じゃないの？
He, Inukai, hesitated to answer. Unable to discern the intent of his suspicious phone call, he had a vague feeling that something was off. He thought about hanging up the phone and asking the operator who initiated the call. However, he forced himself to restrain that urge and for the time being chose to state his name and listen.
そうです。犬飼です。名乗りましたよ。だから、あんたも名乗ってくださいよ。
私の名前なんてどうでもいいんです。まず、あなたがどういう立場に置かれているか、それを認識するところから始めましょう。あなたは今、自分の席で電話をしていますね。では、あなたの席の右側の一番下の引き出しを開けてみてください。
The lowest drawer to the right of the minister's chair. There was a lock on it, not enough to function as a safe, but nevertheless, it was a drawer that contained some valuable things. That's why Inukai thought that the person wanted some of the important information contained within that drawer.
すまんが、開けるつもりはないよ。自分の名前も名乗れんやつの言いなりになる言われはない。
引き出しを開けてくれないなら、この電話を切ります。 きっと後悔することになりますよ。まずは引き出しを開けてから考えてもいいんじゃないですか。
Inukai didn't like following orders from this suspicious person one bit. However, he was concerned about what the man said about regretting it, so he decided to open the drawer. He took the small key he kept stowed in his wallet and unlocked the drawer. His hand stopped right before he opened it. What if there was a bomb inside and it would explode if the drawer was opened? That delusion took hold of him. He quelled that instinct and opened it.
開けてくれましたか？そこにあるものが何かわかりますよね。
これはどういうことだ？おい。
どういうことか説明する必要なんかないですよね。時間を差し上げますので、少しお考えください。また後ほどこちらから連絡いたします。それでは失礼。
おい待て。もしもしもしもし
The call had already ended. That would not change no matter how much he yelled at it. Even still, Inukai, without realizing that, continued yelling through receiver for a while. The drawer was still open. On top of the folder crammed into the drawer, it lay there. Toshiki Inukai. Written in plain lettering on a grade schooler's name tag, just lying there. Enshrined there completely out of place as if it were cowering. Okay, this is a work of fiction. Oh my god, I thought it was real. What is this beginning though? Yeah. Very, very different. I guess 1978, so Keiichi's not here right now. Do you remember Yukie? This picture? Or Yuki? Yukie? Yuki. I'll just say Yuki. But then again, Yuki is spelled with an I only, right? And this one is with an E, so Yukie? Maybe. This is where I first proposed to you. That brief moment before you nodded back, you probably wouldn't know just how much it seemed like an eternity to me. Yes, I would have never thought that the amount of time could feel like an eternity. Compared to how long I had to wait for you to propose to me, it was... laughing. From the moment I met you until today, compared to the time I've spent since I was born, it might be only a brief period, but they were definitely precious, beautiful days that deserve to be called an eternity. That time continues even now. From now on, I wonder if it'll be a boy, or maybe a girl. Either one is fine. Boy or girl, either way, it's living proof that we love each other. If it's a boy, we'll name it after you, Mamoru. If it's a girl, we'll put the Yuki from my name in hers. Thinking about names is fun that in the end, we still haven't decided yet. There's still a time to puzzle over it. Not that long of time, actually. You see, Yukie, there's something I have to apologize for today. It's about your job. Sorry, it looks like an annoying bit of work has come up. In the worst case, I might not be able to be there for the delivery. It's fine. You have a very important job. What you do protects the way we live. Compared to you, it's nothing. Please, go ahead. When you return, I'll be waiting here with our child. Thank you. Also, I'm sorry. Please don't apologize. If you feel guilty about it, then you can just atone. If I atone that much, no matter how much money I have, it won't be enough. It's a joke. Now, go on. As I left the room, I bumped into an elderly man. It was Yukie's father. In other words, my father-in-law.
お父さん、邪魔する気はなかったからな。廊下で待たせてもらったよ。聞き耳を立てるつもりはなかったが、聞こえてしまった。生きたまえ。幸恵はああいう娘だ。何があっても自分が君の枷になることを望むまい。
私はこれまで幸恵にさまざまな犠牲を強いてきました。出産という人生の節目にまで彼女に犠牲を強いることを恥じます。
君が本当にそう思うなら、仕事が終わったら幸恵のために時間を割きなさい。君が仕事を投げ出して付き添ってくれるよりも、そうした方がきっと幸恵も喜ぶだろ
う。ありがとうございます。
君がとても大切な仕事をしていることは私もよく知っている。自分の仕事を誇りに思いなさい。幸恵は 君が見事難題を解決して凱旋するのを楽しみにしている。
はい。
I jumped into the taxi that was waiting outside. Compared to the time when I first got here, the numbers on the fare meter had grown considerably. It seemed the modest time Yuki and I had spent together wasn't so modest from an objective point of view.
待たせてすみません。やってください。
いえいえ。では参りますよ。
The taxi jerked as it changed gears to accelerate, soon bearing the hospital my wife was in behind a throng of buildings. If it was to end up as a really troublesome ordeal, I probably wouldn't be returning for quite some time. To call a rookie like me, and on top of that, one who's off duty, it seemed that the section chief was calling for all hands on deck. The veteran upper brass gathering on an emergency basis happened occasionally. This was the first time, though, that I experienced everybody gathering together like this. Whatever was happening, there was no doubt it was going to be something novel. Right when my wife was ready to give birth, if I wanted to spend the time to curse my misfortunes, I'd be here all day. Even the verdant ginkgo trees lining the street that always brightened my mood seemed to lack some of their usual luster. Eventually, the government office came into view. I think we saw this place, right? When we were in chapter 2, right? In the ending. Yeah. Briefly holding my breath, I let the feelings of tension course through my body once again. I had to remember the work I was doing was important and necessary and difficult. I composed myself and sharpened my wit. Ready. The taxi stopped in front of the building. Okay. What is this?
室長、全員揃いました。赤坂くん、ブラインド下ろしてくれる？
The blinds were usually closed when they needed to use a projector or if the discussion was going to contain some particularly disturbing content. The blinds closed with a satisfying sound, darkening the interior of the room. Immediately, the inside of the room was completely drained of the pleasant morning atmosphere, leaving behind only the cold illumination of the fluorescent lighting. After the supervisor ensured that everyone was present, he nodded to the section chief once again. With everybody on the edge of their seats, the chief stood up solemnly and began to give his report.
推定48時間前、建設大臣の孫にあたる建設省幹部の子息が誘拐された模様です。建設大臣は事態を穏便に済ませるため、警察へ通報せず要求に応じるものと思われます。
It seemed that approximately 48 hours earlier, the Minister of Construction's grandson, who was also the son of one of his senior staff members, was kidnapped. The reason why it was phrased that way because the person in question didn't admit it had happened.
大臣宅の通話を監視した結果、都外からと思われる不審な電話が数件確認されました。誘拐された子供は病気療養中となっているが、通院の形跡はなく、周辺での目撃例もなく、その他いくつかの理由から事件発生は間違いないものと断定しました。
Here, they omitted the details that brought this incident to light. If you think about it, that meant that before this incident happened, the minister's residence had been under surveillance already. I wouldn't use the word spied upon. Of course, there wouldn't have been a court approval for this, and it would have been very hard to explain to ordinary citizens. However, it was quite an effective method to catch wind of incidents like this before they got worse. I'd like for you to understand that dealing with these cases before they become a problem is the job of the Public Safety Division.
なぜ警察に通報せず要求を鵜呑みに？
大臣たる者が警察を信用できないってんだから、 世も末だね。
犯人グループは誘拐初期に自分たちが大臣の生活をかなり高度に監視していることを警告し、その証拠を示した様子です。大臣が屈服し、警察への通報も思いとどまるほどの何かですね。
警察へ通報してもすぐにわかるぞって？
大臣の近辺に内通者がいる可能性か。
So yeah, maybe someone just close to him kidnapped the boy. Several of the higher ranking members who seem to have experience with this kind of thing let out deep sighs.
犯人グループの目的が要求にあるのか、事件そのものにあるのかは不明ですが、いずれにせよ、国益を脅かす事態に発展する可能性が極めて高い。
If their goal was to simply have their demands met for monetary gain, that would have been nice. However, if this was some politically motivated shakeup, things would get a little bit more complicated.
被害者の協力がないということは、脅迫内容も要求も一切不明ということか。
本件は内通者の水準がかなり高いと思われるため、当室のみの極秘捜査とします。また本件は本日より最優先事項となり、これまでの通常業務を一時凍結して対応します。よろしいですね。
After that, the supervisor continued on, tactfully explaining our course of action. If this incident were to become public, it was possible that the minister's political life would be over. I'll spare you the explanation of how the rest of the dominoes would fall, but in the end, support in the Diet would decline, followed by a no-confidence vote and a snap election, and it might even expand communist influences. In other words, we wanted to handle this delicately.
川崎と佐伯は大臣宅子供宅の通話を24時間監視。大臣の動向を探れ。動きがあるたびに逐一報告せよ。残る各職員は担当団体ごとに本件との関連を調査。最近動きが不穏な特殊ラインは集中的にやれ。それから外国勢力も水を漏らすな。
I've experienced one or two unamicable situations before. This, however, was the first time I've seen things get so hectic. Several sophisticated conversations were progressing without the involvement of a rookie like me. I didn't intend to be timid, but I couldn't hide my confusion at this unfamiliar situation.
では書き打ちに行ってくれ。で、赤坂君は
I snapped back to the alertness upon hearing my name called.
はい。
赤坂君は大臣に陳情してきた環境保護団体関連を調査してくれ。中でも新聞でも騒ぎになってるひなみ沢ダム建設反対の団体をよく調査すること。
Okay, so I guess I see the connection now.
住民団体の仕業とは到底思えないが、全ての可能性を潰していかなくてはならない。
わかりました。ひなみ沢ダム反対か。
直接現地へ行った方がいいだろう。現地県警で情報を取れ。かなり過激な団体らしく、向こうの公安でもマークしてるらしいぞ。
わかりました。
So this is how he gets or ends up in Hinamizawa.
現地へ出向します。
奥さん、出産控えてるんだって？こんなタイミングで申し訳ないけど、協力頼むよ。時間がかけられないから、人海戦術で総当たりで行くしかないんだ。
ええ、分かってます。家内も自分の都合が私の仕事に触ることを嫌いますから。
すまん、ありがとう。それから川崎君、佐伯君、君たちの応援には。
I didn't want to take a business trip when my wife was about to give birth. Even if I was a little busy, as long as I was in Tokyo, I could head to the hospital right away. On assignment though, that would be difficult. Even so, I knew that work what I was doing was important and fully understood that I was in no position to be selfish. I'd have to make it up to my wife for having to be away at such an important time. My wife, Yukie, would probably give me with a smile, or forgive me with a smile. The only thing she could hate doing would be holding me back. My male ego, though, at least wished she would have tried to stop me. Sorry, Yukie. I don't mind if you always complain to our child that their father couldn't come to the hospital when they were born because he was too busy with work. The next day, I took the bullet train to Nagoya and from there transferred to the train to the XX prefecture. Getting to my destination by land, it took several hours. This is the place I think we saw with Keiichi in the beginning, right? In chapter 1. If I was traveling by the air in the amount of time, I could probably get as far as Hong Kong. XX prefecture was by no means close. I never sat in the first class except for work, but whenever I did, the seat seemed stiff. Closing my eyes, I mentally reviewed the documents I read yesterday. The group under investigation, the Onigafuchi Guardians. They were a group of residents opposed to the development proposed under the Hinamizawa Dam project. The local protests were quite heated and were getting more radicalized. Even limited to what was written in the newspapers, there was bloodshed that occurred during a clash with the riot police. Interference with the dam construction, too many to count. The number of petitions, sit-ins, and direct appeals to the relevant organizations were innumerable. As an extension of that, there was a direct appeal to the Minister of Construction the other day.
これがそもそも今回この団体を調査することになったゆえんだ。
The land that they lived on was going to be submerged, so it was no wonder they would go into a frenzy over it. Even given that though, could they really be capable of doing something like kidnapping the Minister of Construction's grandson in order to halt the project? From my take on it, I had serious doubts. This kidnapping plot was extremely sophisticated and complicated enough that it was believed there was some political backing. This wasn't something that could be pulled off by some group of local protesters. Well, just like the chief said, the plan was to eliminate all possibilities. While I'm in the XX police reference room taking my time investigating, the higher-ups in Tokyo would probably solve the case. Without my involvement entirely, even if it was true, I couldn't regret being away from Tokyo while my wife was ready to give birth. And this was work. There was really nothing that I could do. Ding dong. The announcement that we would be arriving at our destination soon snapped me back to wakefulness. Gogura, Prefectural Public Safety Division.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟ですか。
ええ、地元ではかなり賑わせているようです。
The Prefectural Public Safety Department already had documents and a cup of tea ready and waiting for me.
早い話がダム反対の住民運動なんですが、事実上水没地域の住民すべてが決起したと言っていいでしょうね。死守なんて古風な言い方が示す通り、相当の決意と覚悟を持った連中です。そこら辺の温和な住民団体とは一線を画すと思っていただいた方がいいですね。
The stack of papers they had prepared for me in the document room was by no means thin.
発足当初はごくごく平均的な住民運動だったんです。それがいつだかの流血事件を境に急にヒートアップしまして、今では暴力主義団体かそれに準じるくらいの過激な勢力に成長したと言えますね。
Violent organizations usually indicate ones that enforce their own ideology without regards to the democratic process. Breaking that down, many of these organizations held extreme left revolutionary ideologies. Considering that, I couldn't help but be surprised that a citizens group would end up going this far. I mean, he hasn't seen the Shinozaki, it's the Shinozaki group. Radical citizens movements happen occasionally, It seemed, however, that this group was nothing as trifling as that. It seemed that I would have to reconsider exactly what this Onigafuchi Guardians was.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟が要求。つまりダム計画の撤回を求めるために行いうる活動範囲はどの程度でしょうか。
And the kidnapping of the minister's grandson was classified. That meant, of course, I couldn't tell the XX Prefectural Department about it either.
ご存知の通り、先週あった犬飼建設大臣への直訴事件では逮捕者も出ています。危険性は十分にありますね。
I skimmed over the list of criminal records related to the Onigafuchi Guardians recorded in the documents. The contents were all violent, not giving me the barest hint of a feeling that these people were trying to uphold the law.
具体的に教えていただけますか。
The chief opened up a manila envelope, fished out several unorganized sheets, and spread them out on a desk.
建設現場への襲撃事件が最も多かったですね。初期の頃、電源コードの切断や錠前の鍵穴に石を詰める、投石による事務所の窓ガラス割り等の軽犯罪が頻発していました。
Of course, what really happened first were things like demonstrations, sit-ins, and distributions of pamphlets, lively but democratic forms of protest. However, when the demonstrators and police clashed, started a riot leading to numerous injuries and arrests. It was from then on that the Onigafuchi Guardians, like their name implies, began to take a more demonic form of resistance.
襲撃が度重なれば地元警察による警備強化がなされるのでは。
それは警戒はしたでしょうね。でもあちらは地元ですから。闇に乗じて忍び込まれたらお手上げでしょう。
You might as well label the entire map of Inamizawa village around the dam constructions enemy territory. No matter how alert the police were, the locals would just show them exactly how it was easy to sneak around.
警察が警備を固めてからは、むしろ挑発されたように過激化が進みました。ほら、この辺りからだいぶヒートアップしてるのがお分かりになります？
事務所の放火、建設重機の破壊工作。破壊？まさか爆弾でも？
いや、まさか。連中ですね。タンクに角砂糖を放り込むんですよ。あれやられたらエンジン焦げついちゃいますから。
Sugar cubes. It fouls the engine. Even in Japan, it seemed there had been people doing that to vehicles of occupying forces right after the war. Compared to misdemeanors like breaking windows, it was extremely violent and aggressive.
そこまでやられたら地元警察の面目は丸つぶれですね。
放火はさすがにですね。それで地元警察が24時間体制の人員を大幅に増員しまして、それで建設現場への襲撃は一段落したようです。
He used the words quiet it down, but that was still smack dab in the middle of the list of crimes.
で、連中ですね。現場への直接攻撃が難しくなったとしたら、今度は個人攻撃に切り替えました。最初に狙われたのが工事事務所の現場作業者でした。
After that, there was a silence. What was being described to me was a guerrilla war fought in the jungle. Threats and violence against the workers. Harsh words and harsher rocks were thrown.
かなりの告訴がされているのに逮捕者があまり出ていませんね。
そりゃそうです。第一、目撃者なんかいないんですから。それどころか現行犯だったにしたってアリバイがポンポンポンとできちゃうんです。
それはどういうことですか？
例えばですね、あなたがひなみ沢で歩いていて、ある男にナイフで刺されたとします。あなたは相手をよく覚えていて、名前も住所も特定できてるとします。ただしナイフには指紋がなく、物的証拠だけがない。まあありがちな傷害事件だと思うでしょ。でもひなみ沢じゃ完全犯罪なんです。
Everyone is the entire village. They're all in it. To protect the man who was the perpetrator, they'll get their story straight and prepare an alibi. To that end, they'll probably even forge some evidence.
裁判にもつれ込ますほかないわけですが、何しろ物的証拠はない上、犯人を隠匿する証言だけは後から増えていく。検察も書類送検には二の足を踏むわけです。殺人ならいざ知らず、投石で額を切った、殴られてあざができた程度だと、仮に犯人を特定できたとしても嫌疑不十分で送検されないことがほとんどです。
Every case is without a doubt perpetrated by someone in Hinamizawa, but they can't identify who. Even if they could figure out who it is, they're unable to obtain enough circumstantial evidence through due process. The villagers were all extremely well informed about this, and so the malicious, vicious, and tenacious personal attacks continued.
被害者はそれでは納得できないでしょう。検察審査会に再審請求を出さないのですか？
それはですね、審査員たちがみんな厄介ごとに巻き込まれたくないと思っているからですよ。ひなみ沢関係のトラブルには首を突っ込みたがらないんです。
The inquest committee is comprised of a random selection of local residents. In the event that the prosecutor fails to get a conviction, they have the power to order a retrial. It's a system designed to assert the will of the people and the actions of expert prosecutors in the world, or in the legal world. In this case, however, being composed of local residents has backfired.
首を突っ込みたがらない。それはなぜです？
なんて説明すればいいんでしょう。恐れられているって言えばいいのかな。あそこはね、少し特殊なんです。
特殊？何か政治的なバックボーンが存在するということですか？
いえ、そういうのとは少し違うというか、まあ怖がられていると思ってください。この辺りは口では少し説明しにくいんです。ああ、そうだ、わかりやすいのがありました。
Wiping his forehead with a handkerchief, he opened a file labeled as List of Members of the Unagafuchi Guardians.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟の勢力にはですね、近隣の町々に強い影響力を持つ人間が多々おりまして、この辺をご覧いただけますか。
I looked what I saw and startled me. Prefectural and municipal assembly members, staff members of the Chamber of Commerce, an executive of a business association, an executive of a town council association, and the PTA liaison. There were more than a few people with a lot of say both locally and in the neighboring regions.
この界隈では、ひなみ沢のダム反対運動は皆静観しているのが普通なんです。ダムを肯定するような発言をすると、どこでどう巡って不利益を被るかわからない。何しろ近隣の町の喉元はひなみ沢出身の人間が抑えていますからね。
検察審査員のリストは非公開でしょう。報復がされないように何らかの措置が取られているはずでは。
一応非公開でプライバシーは守られてますがね。それを管理してるのは沖宮市役所の人間、つまり地元の人間なんです。 守秘義務があるとはいえ、やはり人間のつながりは分かりませんからね。ひなみ沢の人間はそのあたりのつながりがことのほか強固ですから。
When you consider the obligations and duties people have to the region, and the web of information thereby formed is nothing to scoff at. It's not uncommon for housewives in a neighborhood to know which kid from which house is what grade in which school, what subjects they're good at, and what vegetables they hate amongst themselves, or among other things.
それにほら、ひなみ沢と遅延の深い暴力団組織がありましてね。これが今回の騒動に全面バックアップしてるらしいんです。こちらが出てくるのが一番効いてるみたいですね。
暴力団？ダムの建設反対で住民と一致？どういう利害が一致するのか読みがたいですね。
それは難しいことじゃないです。実はですね、この暴力団の組長がですね、ひなみ沢村の出身なんです。村の重鎮の一人の婿養子にあたりまして。
Exactly what was this Hinamizawa? I had thought it was some desolate rustic village. However, for some reason, they exert a strong influence on the surrounding areas and a strong sense of unity. They would protect their village by any means necessary, even if that meant resorting to violence. The chief had said that they were afraid because there were numerous influential people living there. But somehow I got the feeling that they were afraid of the village itself. There was something clearly different from what I had read in the documents in Tokyo. This was no simple residential protest against a dam. For some reason, an uneasy feeling began to nestle itself at the back of my mind. I chose the most basic way to ask my question. In other words, I directly asked what I wanted to know.
室長、これは例えば仮の話ですが。
はい。
例えばその鬼ヶ淵主導名がダム計画を頓挫させるため要人を脅迫するようなことは考えられますか？
The chief replied immediately.
あり得るでしょう。事実、彼らは市役所や県庁、建設省の工事事務所にも押しかけ、恫喝まがいのことをしていますし、工事関係者の家族が不審者につけ回されたという事件も起こっています。
Well, that would make sense. To halt progress on the dam, they raided the construction site, destroying heavy machinery and lighting the construction office on fire. If they didn't have any qualms about doing that, threats and violence against people related to the dam would probably be no problem. But that was it. Even your everyday hoodlum could use threats and violence. However, this time, it was the kidnapping of the minister's grandson, an abnormally high-level crime. Not only was pulling off the kidnapping difficult in the first place, but so was maneuvering to have the minister surrender to their demands immediately. There was no way this was the work of amateurs. Did these people have the power to enact this large of a crime? And that was the heart of the matter. Was the Onagafuchi Guardians an organization capable of pulling this off? In order to ask the question once again, I chose the most basic method.
例えば政府要人の関係者を誘拐して脅迫なんてことがあり得ると思いますか？
Wait, sorry. There is no way they could pull something off that big. That was the answer I most hoped for. If it was the answer, my work was as good as halfway done. I might be able to get back in time for my wife to give birth. That was how it was supposed to be. The chief, without a hint of hesitation, replied,
やるかもしれません。
They just might.
そこの知れない連中ですから。
Sorry, Yukie. It seemed like my work wouldn't end so simply after all.
赤坂君か。ご苦労さん。担当地域での情報収集はどうですか？
順調です。これから現地警察の公安と接触できることになりましたので、現地へ向かう予定です。東京の調査の方はどうですか？
他の職員も順調に調査を進めているよ。でも調べる団体が星の数だからね。そんなに悠長に時間もかけられないし。
There were no new developments at this time. No matter how suspicious the Onagafuchi Guardians was, if they solved the case in Tokyo, my job was done. It looked like my wishful thinking wouldn't come to pass. Hanging up the phone, I let my gaze drift outside the window to the valley of unfamiliar buildings.
赤坂さん。今、お貸しできる車が戻ってきました。ご案内しますので、こちらへどうぞ。
あ、すみません。
He showed me the elevator to the underground parking where a battered sedan was waiting for me. That the steering wheel kept drifting to the left was still a little concerning, but it would be enough to get me around for a while. My destination was Shishibone City Prefecture, an area under the control of the Onagafuchi Guardians. The Okonomiya police station was right in front of the front lines. Damn. So yeah, we're learning, I guess in this chapter, I suppose, all the things that happened back then when this damn war, I suppose, started. Okonomiya Prefecture. Okay, so I guess we'll take a break for now. So yes, as I just said, we are going back. I guess this chapter is more or less like not a relaxed chapter, but I guess there are gonna be mysteries later on, right? Especially by the ending. But of course, it's not. Of course, Keiichi is not here. For 100%, Keiichi is not here. The other characters, maybe Rena's probably not here as well, right? So maybe the only ones we could see is gonna be Rika, Shion. I don't know, Shion, yeah, Shion, Mion, and then Satiko. Maybe only those characters that maybe would see them, but it is 1978, so they're gonna be much more younger for sure, right? Oishi, they said as well. So this chapter hasn't really hooked me yet. I mean, we just started, right? They're giving us this what do you call this kidnapping, this Onagafuchi Guardians, right? So I guess we're gonna go in depth on what really happened during this time, right? So yeah, I wish it's gonna be, or I'm looking forward to it, to seeing the full story, and let's see if it's good, right? So yeah, it's kind of like an extra chapter, basically, right? An extra answer arc to give us more, or answer a question arc to give us more mysteries. So yes, we're gonna continue this and do more of Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 4. What do you call this again? Himatsubushi, right? Himatsubushi. Very long title. In the next one. So I'll just see you then, guys. Bye bye.